Hi there, John here. Welcome to Microaces Workshop and welcome to the third installment of the Percee twin engine aircraft build. In the last episode, we actually got to complete our fuselage frame. And in the video before, of course, we constructed our nacelles for the motors. So in this episode, we will certainly start, if not complete, the covering of the fuselage with the new Tyvek material, which is very exciting. So here we go. Here's our stuff, all printed and laser cut, but left on the sheet. So we just need to cut it out as per usual, and because we're using Tyvek, which is a little like building with paper or card, one of the techniques that's used when butting two pieces together is that you have an underlying joining piece, and that's what we're going to be doing here. Something that I learned by watching people create paper models. So thanks to them, we've been able to use that technique here too, and we just use the same material, same Tyvek material, to do that. So let's start off by, this is T7. Let's remove that. And T3 on the other side. We'll do the whole fuselage. We'll put all of the joining pieces on. So we've got T3 and T7, which run down the underside here. And then we've got some parts that run across the top as well, T2 and T6, which are split into two parts. So let me just extract those from the board, and then we'll crack on. You don't have to watch me do this. I'm going to pause it. So here are our little carcellated pieces. We're going to start with the ones that run across or along the bottom of the fuselage there. Now, what I'm going to do is score these on the rear side. I'm just going to run a line score down the center of each, just using the back of the knife. You've got to press hard on these because they're very thin and they tend to move underneath the ruler if you don't hold them down nice and firm. So wide span, and then that'll allow us to just bend them over into, well, on this particular part of the build it's a 90 degree. So now these little parts, as I said before, they allow us, they provide a little assistance when we are joining two pieces of the skin basically together. They, as you can see, they're colored as well, so that if the pieces, or the main pieces that adorn the fuselage, don't quite touch, the color itself fills in the potential white stripe that might result in the pieces not quite coming together. It's a small factor in using the more flexible foam that we use. Obviously, there are just fractions of difference that you can introduce during the build. and this just reduces the possibility of those little differences in geometry or accuracy affecting the overall look of the build once it's finished. So, and of course, the flexibility I find is a real advantage in the fact that these aircraft can take quite a bit of punishment, unlike their larger counterparts, which have a lot of momentum behind them when they're flying. These little things don't fly very fast and weigh very little. So if they're made of something that's quite flexible as well, then it's not going to all end in tragedy. So let's just position another dry fit just so I can see where I need to put the glue. So the glue basically starts at this former here and works its way back to the back there. So let's just apply a little glue to that area and we can get our joining part on. So I'm just using the smear on technique where I put the nozzle in contact with the actual foam itself and then drag it along. As you can see, I'm almost like sort of shading in. I might as well do the other side whilst I'm here. Yeah, it's almost like using a felt tip to colour something in. We don't need a huge amount of glue, just enough to tack it down. So, that on. Go. Obviously, the tighter we can get it onto the airframe, the better. And I was thinking when I was building the Percee, this is the Percee, the Militaire. Let me just show you. As you can see over my shoulder there, it's coming along nicely. When I was building that, I thought maybe these little bits as well add some strength too, but who knows? They're quite flexible, so I doubt it. But yeah, so the Militaire is coming along nicely. As you can see, we've got the nacelles on and the inner wings, which is good, and it's great practice for doing this again to show you how it's done. Back to the build board. So okay, let's pop that onto the side. There we go. That's okay. Now to the top parts. Now that's just once again, as you'll notice, I'm actually scoring them on the back, and the reason for that is if I score them on the front, it tends to remove the print, so kind of takes away the advantage of having the print there to cover up any little misalignments. So that's why I do it on the back. I suggest you do too. So now this doesn't need to be a 45-degree because this is the junction between the sides and the roof of the aircraft. Oh, excuse me. Let's finish off my tea before it goes cold. No, it's gone cold. Oh well. Oh, not a fan. Not a fan of cold tea. I can do cold coffee, but not cold tea. So that goes on there like so. I only have to do it onto the one surface up here. Although I could add a little blob just onto the formers. On she goes. Okay, now I'll do the other side. Lots of pressure. It doesn't slip. Then on we go again. Right, well I think you get the idea. So I'll crack on, pause recording and come back with these bits done. Thought I'd let you in on the attachment of the final piece, just to show you the technique. It's not much of a technique, but I know these things can help sometimes. So this is quite a long piece to put on, so it just gets laid on the side, essentially like that. I haven't done much in the way of bending the score, but I can do that as I go here. Which is not the technique I wanted to show you. The orientation, once you put it off the sprue, it's orientated correctly on the sprue, but once you get it off, it's difficult to see. But you've got the shorter carcellated part towards the rear here, and butt it right up against the piece that you've attached to the top there. There are some things going to be happening around this area soon to do with the tail feathers, so that's important to get this correct, or this can actually get in the way of the horizontal stabilizer fitting onto the fuselage. Should have pre-folded those, shouldn't I, really? Okay. Well, that's all stuck down. There's also a similar part that goes on the front here, so I'll get that done. That's actually let's have a look on the sheets. T8, T4 and T8. So let me get those cut out. We'll get those attached too. So I've attached one side and onto the next. As you can see, the taper on the Tyvek part itself sits towards the back of the aeroplane. The part fixes from the nose backwards right up to the point where the line of this sidewall just changes changes its angle. So glue up to there, then on it pops. There we go. Right. Once this all dries off, I'm going to go and make myself a fresh cup of tea. I'll be back with you in a second. Good. Tea that's hot. Oh, that's good. That is good. Right. So, all our little bits are on. Now it is time for the exciting bit. Actually bringing the big parts together onto the fuselage. Our first port of call is it's labelled as T7. So this is the rear underside of the fuselage, and just remove this from the sheet. Now on these parts, it's worth checking that once we've cut through this material, that there's not any little tag hanging out of the side. Of course, we can't. Well, I suppose you could try and sand this, but what I tend to do is I'll turn it upside down, so I've got the white surface against the dark green of the cutting mat, and then I'll just go round, and if I've got anything poking out, it's pretty obvious, and I can then just trim accordingly. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little bit hanging out there. I'll just, with my nice sharp knife, just remove that excess. There we go. So, of course, the key here, as in many of the Microaces builds, is a bit of dry fitting, just so you can get used to where your part is supposed to sit. So here we, as you can see, this part goes all the way up to the former that crosses over here, and back to the tail. You should have a relatively good fit all the way back. And yep, I'm pretty happy with how that all sits. And the one thing I am going to ask you to do here is to not stick these little pokey out bits here. Not at the moment stick them to these parts here. Only because when we start putting the wings on, and there's a little bit of faffing around that we have to do here, and it's easier if this is loose. If you accidentally glue it down, of course you've got lighter fluid to release, so don't worry too much about that. But you can glue it all the way up to within the confines of the size of the fuselage. Just leave these a little bit loose, so we can tuck things under when it's up the other way above. So anyway, once we're happy that that's going to sit nicely on the underside there, we can then start thinking about gluing it down. So I don't like using too much glue. I have noticed on some of the areas where I've built with Tyvek that if there's an excess amount of glue underneath, the Tyvek can bulge or bubble slightly, so which is not ideal. So keeping the glue as thin as possible, and I use my I think I'm going to call it my felt tip technique, where literally put the nozzle onto the material and then just drag it back and forth like I'm trying to colour the area in with Yoo-hoo, so I get a very thin smear. Now the disadvantage of this is, of course, we get quite a build-up of Yoo-hoo on the tip around the edges, so it just needs cleaning fairly often, but saves using a lot of glue, which, as I always say, glue is weight. Dash across there too. Dash across there. Dash across there. Now the other thing about smearing it thinly is that it does dry very quickly as well, so you can expect there to be quite a bit of a grab when you bring the part into the fuselage. Okay, well, I've remembered not to glue these bits, they're still free. Obviously, when you're handling the aircraft during the build, just remain aware that these are free. You don't want them being all bent out of shape before the build's complete. You can do that when you're flying it. So I find the Tyvek, especially when you're doing these large areas, the Tyvek does need sort of a bit of smoothing down. It doesn't always tack first time, so just a little bit of smoothing. And the other thing that you can do, which is the trick that if you've seen any of the other build videos with the 1mm foam, is just using the top of your fingernail, the hardness of your fingernail, just to rub the edges, and that turns in the edge itself, which tends to get rid of some of that white edge and creates a sort of a smooth edge to the part itself. So this can take a little bit of finessing, but if you like stroking your models, sounds a bit weird. So here we go. Good. So there's the bottom part of the bottom there. And what we're actually going to do now is take that all the way along and put the next part of the underside, which will complete it, in fact. You can see these are pretty big sheets of material in comparison to our previous kits. Let's just do the little trick again of turning it over to see if we've got any excess tabs. that and sits like so. So that goes right to the front of the aircraft. If you've built the frame accurately, then that should actually just, I think it's probably overhanging by about 1/4 of a millimetre. So not too upset about that. Runs all the way. You'll find that the fuselage sort of tends to dip in here a bit, but these holes are very useful when you actually got this applied. You can hook the back of your knife in and just pull them out slightly, so they sit on the edge of the material itself. So let's get gluing again. Right. If you're feeling like getting it really super accurate, you can always sand down some of these parts so they're absolutely flush. If you're wanting that expert touch, I'm not going to go that far. But if you like the challenge of the build and you like spending time doing this, which I must admit I do, it's very, very soothing, therapeutic when it goes right, and can be slightly frustrating when it doesn't. So. There we go. Okay. Slurp of tea. So that was a slurp, wasn't it? Excuse me. I'm going to get too much of the yoo-hoo on my hands and start smearing it all over the aircraft. Obviously, the alignment is the most important part here, just to make sure we get everything lined up well. I think that looks pretty good. The Tyvek itself is very lightly put on yet. I haven't put much sort of downward pressure, so as you can see it sort of ripples along at the moment. That's fine, that's not a problem. What I'm going to do is slowly bring the material to bear so that the glue has its desired effect, and those areas where it's slightly overlapping, I can get my knife in there. I can't put my knife in there, but what I can do, with an old blade, don't want to dirty that one, and then just and of course what I can do, should it be necessary, is I can just trim some of that edge as well. But I think we're going to be good. Just need to pull it out a little bit on this side. Go. Yeah, there's a little bit I might have to trim now. No, maybe not. So, once again, just about smoothing it all down, and then using our little fingernail technique, which also helps with the gluing process. There we go. And I'll just check for trimming. There might be something I can do here. Yeah, just as you can see, just a sliver off there. And so I'm going to have to get my head over it. So, we have our underside completed. In good time. Now we can start thinking about putting the side panels on. So this is a process that can be done over several steps, and it's worth doing it over several steps as well. It just makes it easier to manage, basically. So we'll go for port side first. Why not? T1. So let me just extract this and we'll get back. Voila, there we go. So what we can do now is just thread this on with the two slots in the side of the fuselage. Just thread through the spars of the wing. Slide on there, and then we can just check for alignment. So it's pretty obvious where everything goes. So we just it's all looking good. Yeah. Looks great. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to entirely take this off. I'm just going to move it along those spars, and then where it comes into contact from pushing down on those spars, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue so that it stays in position. So, and then, where it comes into contact from pushing down on those spars, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue so that it stays in position. So, and then, where it comes into contact from pushing down on those spars, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue so that it stays in position. So, and then, where it comes into contact from pushing down on those spars, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue so that it stays in position. So, and then what we can do is go forward and up, just gluing it down a step at a time. Now the important areas here to get glued down are the edges, where the skin comes in contact with other parts of the skin or some of the joining pieces. Okay, I think that's everything glued where I need it glued. Just bring this whole thing down onto the fuselage. Make sure it aligns. So we've glued from there to there at the moment. Because this is nice and flexible, we can move bits out of the way to add the next part of the glue, next part of the fuselage. Okay, with that stuck down, we can move on. I'll do the nose section first. So a smear of glue around the edge. And I'll put a little more on the nose area as well, just so it's obviously when the material's stuck down, it adds a little bit of strength, and certainly the nose is an area that may need that, especially if I'm at the wheel, so to speak. And then we can turn our attentions to the rear of the aircraft. You might be able to see here I've got a little bit of a gap here, but it doesn't matter because that under piece, the joining piece, has the same decoration as the fuselage, so it's not too much of a problem. And once we get to smooth it down, it should all blend in rather nicely. So now you can do this in one or two phases, entirely up to you. Really need to clean up the tip of that glue. Here we go. Yeah, easily done. Right, back to it. So just hold that up there, and then we can start adding the glue. Do. Then down she goes. So you see the top here is level with this little platform at the back where the horizontal stabilizer will sit. That's important. And then you can actually, because you've got access inside the fuselage, you can pinch these gently together. And let's just get rid of that part in there. That's obviously where the control rod comes out for elevator control, possibly rudder control, maybe. So as you can see, things rapidly start looking like an aircraft once you get this stuff patched onto the plane. So I'm just using my little fingernail rub technique just to get that material down and bonded, as well as smoothing the edge. So, removing a little bit of gum as well. Which is not coming away at the moment. You can rub, rapid rub. There we go. My rapid rub technique. Balls up and comes off. Okay. So use that same technique. The front here. Bring those two edges together too. Right, let's go on to the next side. So the other side goes on in exactly the same way. So I'm not going to bore you with having to watch me do that. So I'll crack on, and no need to fast forward. I'm just going to pause while I do it, and then we can go on to the next part. So there we have it. We have our two sides on the fuselage, and obviously the base as well. Next, we're going to move to the top portion of the aircraft, which now involves. Let's have a look. We'll start at the nose. Why not? T9. So. T9 actually has a reinforcing piece, which is T10. So we need to attach these two pieces together before we attach to the fuselage. The reason for the reinforcement is there's a bit of an overhang on the rear of this particular part, and that overhang will probably get a little bit of abuse because that's where the hatch is, and the hatch will be taken on and off on occasion to change the battery and all that sort of good stuff. So right, so this T10 sits right about there on the underside of T9. So let's just add a little bit of glue. I'm going to use that smear technique once again just to get a nice even flow of glue. Go. And then I'm going to bring it together straight away so that I can have a little bit of time to maneuver it. So let's go back right to the edge. Go. Okay, and then just press it down, pop that to one side, and what we'll do is we'll actually cut out the top, the roof, the deck. I don't know what do you call it. Obviously going to have a name. Everything on an aircraft does. Go. So let's remove those little tabs. Okay, there's a little notch in this as well. This is where one of the little decorative pieces go. This is where the post goes for the aerial, if you fancy putting one on for the fake comms. Now, of course, this needs to be curved as well, so you can actually use our little curve technique. So, and that's going to go on there. But before we glue that onto that, we'll do our nose piece. So what we can do, there's obviously it angles over the formers there. And what we can do is just like a piece of card or a piece of paper, just gently add a crease to the centre there. Little tab there that could be trimmed off slightly. Go. So Tyvek's not the best at forming an even crease, so be gentle. Be gentle with it. Now, I'm going to. Or do I need to trim this piece? I don't think I do. No, that all looks good. So I'm going to start at one edge and then just wrap it over. So let's add some glue to one half. Put a little extra bit on the edge here. That's where it's going to sit. Right there. Excess glue there. Get rid of that later. Okay. So actually, what I'm going to do is just move that up and over so I can get to the other half. And add some more glue. if you do decide to build the Percee, this Tyvek is a really new experience for the builder. I mean, I'm learning as I'm videoing, quite frankly. When you get hold of it and get to use it, you'll find it a lot different than any other material that you've handled. I would suggest it's kind of slippery, almost sort of soapy in the feel that it has. Obviously, it's got the print on as well, but I don't think that's what gives it that particular quality. I think it has that whether it's got print on or not. But yeah, it's unusual stuff. It certainly seems to do the trick for what we need it for. And it's interesting. I love experimenting with new materials, finding new ways of building these particular aircraft. I think it's one of the reasons that the Microaces is what it is because we just love moving forward with different things. You know, obviously we've got the advent of 3D printing. Obviously the use of foams that we have done from the beginning. I think 3D printing is really going to that's going to accelerate fairly shortly. That's good. I like that. I'm probably being blown out slightly there. You can see it there, but that fit was absolutely lovely. I thought I'd have to trim something there, but no, not at all. That's superb. Right. Okay. On to this bit, and this is actually going to be our final part for this portion of the build, and I'll explain why a little bit later. And before I pop that on, there is another part we have to attach to this before we put it on, and that is T11, which is a part used to join the roof part to the tail part. So that literally just pops on the underside there. So we'll get that glued up, and obviously it can sit centrally. So it goes on the opposite end of where the little notch, the little hole has been cut. Drag forward a bit. Oh, it's really stuck quickly. Yeah, I think that's. This Yoo-hoo seems to work really well on the Tyvek material, which is fortunate. So there we go. So let's just check fit. Hopefully we won't have to make any adjustments. Yeah, that seems to. Okay, good. So we're going to start one side and then roll it over. So it's going down from this former all the way through to there, and up over the top. To the other side. Got quiet again. Bit of concentration. Perfect. Woohoo! That's not half bad. Not half bad. So fabulous. So again, using that. I'm using that fingernail technique a lot on this. There we go. So everyone's got nice smooth fingernails. Alternatively, I suppose you could. Well, I've got a paintbrush handle here. It probably does the same sort of thing. Great thing using fingernails, you can actually feel what's underneath. Fab. So that's our roof popped on. Now the tail portion here, we actually, before we put that on, we need to mount our a horizontal stabilizer, and in making our horizontal stabilizer, we also need to create the elevator. So I'll leave the video here. This can be the end of part 3, and in part 4 we'll start assembling the tail feathers and finishing off this this part of the fuselage. So until the next episode, many thanks for watching.